Hi everybody, Mike here. Thanks for watching. Today we're going to look at the Foxeer Digisight version 3 with the standard lens. This is the second production batch that has the corrected firmware. When they initially shipped this camera, they had a quality control issue and they shipped with the wrong firmware and it had a green color cast. This is the corrected version. This camera supports the HDZero Sharkbyte system. It has a large half-inch size sensor, the biggest out there for its form factor size. This is a micro form factor camera. It also supports the larger M12 threaded lenses. The benefits of those features is that the larger sensor gives you reduced sensor noise, especially in low light. There's less digital artifacts compared to a smaller sensor. Also, the larger lens also gives you better image resolution. The general rule of thumb with any camera, the larger the sensor, the larger the lenses, the better the image. We're going to look at three things today. First, the improved color characteristics from the firmware change. Second, we'll compare the field of view of this camera to a GoPro camera, for those of you who use GoPros. And the third thing, we'll look at the fine image detail. Foxeer definitely made an improvement in this camera on the second batch by fixing the firmware and removing the green cast that the first lot had. All of these smaller cameras are not perfect, but this one's a lot better than what it was. It has some highly saturated colors. This video was taken on an overcast day, and I made no changes in post-production to any settings, nor any changes in the camera. I've got GoPro here in the corner. Just as comparison, the GoPro was set at 5400 degree Kelvin, so you can see the slight differences between the contrast and exposure and the color compared to a GoPro camera. But overall, the color of this is pretty well improved from the first batch. It's quite flyable. Second thing I want to take a look at here is the field of view of this camera. Some of us fly long range or freestyle and we use a GoPro on our quad as well. Here you can see a clear comparison between the GoPro and the Digisight, what its angle of coverage is. This is with the standard lens. If you got the Starlight lens, it'd be even wider. It's clear here that the field of view is slightly wider than a GoPro shooting 4K ultra high def with hypersmooth turned on. I personally like this wide coverage. Since we're looking at a 16:9 aspect ratio, I can see up and down pretty far and to the sides as well while flying. Worth noting is that the field of view of your camera is dependent upon the lens focal length, but also the size of your sensor. Every lens makes an image circle on the inside of the camera, and how much field of view you have is dependent on the size of the sensor. Because this camera has a half-inch sensor, it will gather more of the image circle compared to a standard micro-size sensor. The third thing we want to look at is the fine image details. I'm very pleased with this sensor. It does a great job. Look at the fine details of the mountains in the far distance. There's very few artifacts and there's good separation between the sky and the mountains. You don't see black lines. You don't see digital artifacts like you do in some of the smaller sensors. This is probably one of the best cameras out there as far as image resolution. Here's another example, looking at the steel tanks on the right and the top of the red brick building. You can see that it's pretty clean separation between the sky and the building. So I'll leave it at that. You make up your own mind whether you like this camera or not. It's one of the best ones out there. The firmware fix definitely improved the color. I think this will be my go-to camera for a while here. One last thing I want to show you here is what happens if you take the image and you sweeten it in post-production and give it a little bit of sharpening. Here you can see on the left, unsharpened, straight out of the camera, and on the right with a little bit of sharpening applied. Anyways, this is a great little camera. It's got a large half-inch sensor, supports the larger lenses, makes a great image. It's something to seriously consider if flying the HDZero Sharkbyte system. I'm curious to hear your comments about this camera and what you think. Thanks for watching.